Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. Today I'm joined once again by NetX5s and Alex. And today we're looking at the second last film in the Tarantino catalogue. So today we're looking at Django Unchained. And this stars Jamie Foxx, Kerry Washington, Christoph Waltz, Leonardo DiCaprio and Samuel L. Jackson. And this one sort of is, it's a Western, but it sort of has different parts to it. So there's a bit of a revenge picture, but it's also a love story. And it's sort of a journey, and it looks at slavery as well. And it looks at Django, who's a slave who's ultimately freed by Christoph Waltz's character, and they go on a journey together to try and get back his ultimately his wife, and to live as a free man. I guess it sort of looks at how Christoph Waltz's character Schultz really inspires him to break free of things and be his own person. And I really like that dynamic. It sort of has that hero thing that Joseph Campbell talks about in his book, The Hero Journey, where Christoph Waltz's character is like Obi-Wan. I guess you can look at it through Star Wars eyes, and Django's sort of like Luke Skywalker. It's sort of a mentor relationship and friendship that starts with these two guys and expands, on this journey that they go upon in regards to the Star Wars films. Anyway, look, I'm a big fan of this film. It's up there with one of my sort of favourites of Tarantino's. I think it's brilliant. I'm a big fan of Westerns, and I think he really outdid himself this time. So what did you guys think?
Yeah, for me, I just thought it was entertaining. Like, it's good, but I don't really see it in his top tier of his films. I think it's probably my number 5 favourite Tarantino film.
What about you, Alex?
I quite enjoyed it. I feel like it's probably one of his most funnest movies. I really enjoyed myself, and it's probably the most satisfying film, I feel like, out of his category.
Yeah, okay. Like that. Well, it's kind of like you were talking about before, the other Tarantinos. It's more of a linear story in a lot of ways too. Yeah.
And also, I felt like the whole story, when it comes to an end, just really works, and it feels like it ended perfectly.
Yeah, like it told a story from point A to point B, pretty much. It had its start and had its finish.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree with that. I think that it had a very great ending for the story it was telling, and it's sort of ultimately he becomes the hero and he wins in the end, which you don't see in a lot of these sort of westerns. I like the fact that Tarantino was inspired by the other Django movies that came out and sort of added his own spin to it and changed the sort of the white lead character to a black character, and I think that was really great. But what I really liked is just the dialogue and the characters that were fantastic. The acting was really brilliant. Everybody did a great job, but I think Christoph Waltz really stole the show this time. What do you think?
Yeah, he definitely deserved the Oscar for this performance. And it's probably the best performance we ever got from Christoph Waltz.
Yeah, I agree.
No, I completely agree. I feel like he really stole the show for me, and I felt like that was his perfect character. That was just him. I loved it.
Yeah, because this was written for him. And you can see bits of Christoph Waltz's personality show in this character as well.
Yeah, and he really shined, and it's like he did shine in Inglourious Bastards as well, but it just felt like you said, because this character was written for him, he sort of just breathed life into what Tarantino had already created, and it was just perfectly written for him, because Tarantino has a really great ability, I think, of writing characters for certain actors that just sort of, he knows the way they speak and their sort of patterns that really suit them. He gets the way they speak and they act, and he's able to form a really great character from that, and I think that this is a great example of that. I really love the way this is shot. It's beautiful. The cinematography is amazing in it. It looks fantastic. Some really great standout shots within the film. And I just think it was his first sort of Western, and I think he went all out and did a really great job with this film. It is brutal in certain parts. The violence is pretty full on, especially towards the end of the film, but there's just sequences that take place, and it's more not so graphic that what we see, but it's more of the screaming and the yelling and stuff going on.
It does make it feel more realistic as well, because the blood's not CGI. The blood you see on screen is really there. All in all, I think this film is a little bit too simple. You have your characters, you have the protagonists and the antagonists. They have their goals and what they need to do to achieve it. It's probably as simple as you could get. And honestly, I don't really feel the need to rewatch this film as much as Pulp Fiction, because at least with Pulp Fiction, you get the incentive to come back to it every so often to see what details you missed. But with Django Unchained, you kind of you watch it once and it's it was alright, I'll come back to it in 5 months or something like that.
Because you say that, but I find that to be one of the best parts of it. Because I feel like because I have a problem with some of his films being too complicated almost, and I feel like for this it kind of worked because he was just making a typical Western film and stuff like that, and it was really worked for what he was going for that.
Yeah.
So I thought it was quite a positive thing.
I like the simplicity of it though, and it's a film I'd watch again because I'm a big fan of Westerns. I liked the stories he was telling within it, and one thing that really stood out to me was when Christoph Waltz is talking about that German myth about the princess, being guarded by a dragon and demons and all that sort of stuff, and the journey that this hero has to go on to save her. And that's a great metaphor for the whole film. And I think it also comes down to certain performances that sort of shine as well as Christoph Waltz. There's Samuel L. Jackson is just amazing as sort of playing Steven. It's like he runs Candyland ultimately, and he ultimately is much smarter than anybody thinks, even Candy himself. He's a much more intelligent character, and he sort of puts things into motion, and I think that's really a great sort of villain. And Tarantino films seem to be the only place that Samuel L. Jackson is playing a character that's different from him. I think he's a solid actor in everything he does, but Tarantino's films are the only ones he sort of plays characters, and they're specifically written for him by Tarantino. Nitpick, maybe some negatives, I guess, would be Tarantino's Australian accent isn't great, and his performance isn't spectacular. It does have a lot of fun moments in it, though, like especially where they're talking about the bags they got over their head to hide their face so they can attack Schultz and Django. I think that's quite humorous.
I do think the film drags a little bit. Like some stuff could have been trimmed down. Like some stuff I was like, all right, come on, let's keep going. Come on, don't hold on this scene for a little longer than it needs to be.
You didn't like too much? Or?
Well, not things I didn't like too much. I think it was just more the fact that I can see that I felt like the runtime was maybe a tiny bit too long, but I wouldn't shave too much off it, so I wouldn't really consider that to be a negative. But overall, I was quite impressed with it.
I think the worst thing I can say about this film is, in some parts, I was kind of bored by it.
Yeah, well, it's a bit slower, and it's in the sense of a traditional Western. It takes its time to tell its story. And I kind of like slower storytelling when it's building, particularly having characters and actors like Christoph Waltz in scenes that made it more interesting and fascinating to watch, I felt a lot of times. So what's your feeling? What would you give this out of your scoring system?
It was an entertaining film. I don't really see it as his absolute best film. But so yeah, I liked the film, but yeah, that's all I have to say about it. And I'd probably give Django Unchained an 8.5 out of 10.
What about you, Alex?
I quite enjoyed it. I felt like it's his most fun kind of film he's done. And I feel like I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10. I quite enjoyed it. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. I think this film's fantastic. I'd put it up there with Kill Bill and Pulp Fiction. It's one of his best films. I was entertained. It has really good characters, has a simple, basic story. And yet again, it's like most of his Tarantino stuff, which I've been noticing, there's this whole thing about love. There's a love story within it that's the heart of the film. But it's not everything about the film. It's also the journey of these particular characters, especially Django, and the relationship and love. It was sort of the relationship that forms. Christoph Waltz and Django is like the mentor and the apprentice, and the bond and sort of love in a way that they have for each other, and the respect. And this is a theme that has appeared in a number of Tarantino's films. And I just feel overall this is probably one of the best Westerns I've seen in a long time. I like Westerns, and I'm happy that they're sort of appearing once again in these sort of forms. And Tarantino is a great person to direct a Western and create the world that he does with it. And it's all practical, and that's what I like most about it. But overall, I think it's just a solid film, well made, well put together. It looks beautiful, well acted, well written, and well directed. So for me, I'm going to give Django Unchained 4.5 out of 5. I thoroughly enjoyed the experience that I had with this film. Anyway, that's all from me today. Special thanks to NetX5 and Alex for joining me for this review. If you enjoyed this video, please hit subscribe down the bottom. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.